GR200, summer 2019. What's up? You know what today is? Today is Monday, June 3rd. Your little paper is due. I hope you enjoyed this paper. It is actually a real great opportunity for you guys to get exposure, and some of you probably have already done this, but to a big, giant global database. And this would be useful for other classes if you're not finished with USC, and also if you are finished with USC, this would be useful for you in the workplace someday in terms of global marketing, in terms of global economy, predictions. That's what it's all about. You're looking at trends and data, and you can look at history and how it's growing, and then predict the future. So it's awesome, and I hope you guys appreciated what's going on in terms of the world and the U.S. and aging, and it is a big, giant economic issue. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to launch into this week's topics, and again, we're still now covering the three major conditions that affect aging, and this is under the sociological framework that we already discussed of non-communicable disease. A communicable disease is like an infectious disease, okay? These are not infectious diseases, these are chronic diseases of aging. We did cancer last week, and you know, we all have an intimate relationship with cancer because the epidemiology, okay, this is where you're looking at numbers and who's affected and why, or just the raw numbers, the demography. You know, 1 out of 2 men are going to get cancer, 1 out of every 3. So you definitely know somebody that has had cancer as a friend or a family member, and it can be, like I said, a very intimate relationship, as we saw displayed by Julia, and she's amazing. She's such a trooper. She's so smart and so dedicated. So yeah, we're gonna beat this thing. All right, so then we come into diabetes and diabetic heart disease. Okay, they are totally linked. It's in combination. These two are what's called the metabolic syndrome. It's associated with obesity. We can have a whole section, other section on obesity. And obesity puts you at risk for diabetes. Obesity puts you at risk for heart disease, and obesity puts you at risk for cancer. Okay, and it has to do a lot with the factors that are released by fat cells, okay? And so everybody thinks it's just diet. Now the fat cells are little factories that release these hormones and free fatty acids and things like that directly impact the diseases that are linked to it, okay? All these diseases, these two diseases right here in particular. Alrighty, so let's get into diabetes, alrighty? So you know what we have done here, we have included the website right here, okay, and then we also have downloaded each of these topics right here. So what I really want you guys to do is to get in here and show some curiosity and learn all about diabetes. So like I said, you can go here to this PDF file, and it's gonna, you know, come up and tell you, you know, what's all about. This is the same thing. It's reading that is on the website. So we learn about type 1 diabetes. This is also called juvenile diabetes. It's a rare disease. It's an autoimmune disease. It affects children, and the immune system actually attacks the pancreas so that it no longer produces insulin. So this is completely insulin dependent, okay? Type 2 diabetes is a disease that is a combination of genetic risk and lifestyle, okay? And so you can modulate it with diet is what it means. You can modulate it with exercise, all right? However, you know, if you have diabetes in your family, you're at high risk because what you do in terms of exercise and diet kind of interacts with genes. I mean, it's a very complicated kind of interaction, all righty. Also, another type of diabetes happens in pregnancy, okay? And again, this has to do with the unique hormonal changes that happen in women during pregnancy. Alrighty, so we can look at some statistics. It's 2015, 10% of the population. You know, that's crazy. It's amazing, okay? And there's so many health problems associated. We're going to focus in on diabetic heart disease, okay? When you look at each of these problems right here, each one of these problems is linked to the detrimental effects of having high blood glucose and how it affects the blood vessels, the vasculature. Okay, so then you get atherosclerosis, where the blood vessels don't work anymore. You rupture, you have plaques, you have aneurysms, things like that, and the heart muscle begins to die off, and that's what that is. A stroke is where 80% of the time, because of the big atherosclerotic plaque, it dislodges and forms a cork in the blood vessels, so no more blood flows to the brain. Boom, you have a stroke. Same thing happens in the kidneys. The kidneys have a gigantic artery, okay, your renal artery, and when it's compromised, then you don't filter out the garbage backs up in your body, and you have problems. Vascularity to the eyes, vascularity to the mouth. Right here we have neuropathy. We're going to learn all about this. Okay, really poor blood flow means the immune system can't get down there and fight infections in your feet. So these are again pretty straightforward, and just read through it. So that's what each of these are about. They talk to you about insulin resistance, okay, and then you're going to hear it again down here in these videos, okay. So if you come back up here, if you're not into downloading and looking at the PDF files, you can just go directly to the website, and this is the website for the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive Kidney Diseases. And you can see here's all the links. You can tell I've been looking at them, and that's why they're red. So we just went over what is diabetes. We can look at the diabetes testing. What is the A1C test? Okay, when you have a lot of glucose, it candy coats proteins, and hemoglobin A1C is it's a measure of the hemoglobin protein in your red blood cells that gets coated with glucose, and it's a really good measure because it's a chronic measure. So the coating the red blood cells last for about 90 days, and so you get a real good feel for how much chronic high glucose there is. The other thing you can do besides this is you can look at resting blood glucose or fasting blood glucose, and then you can also do a glucose challenge test, okay? And but the problem with those is you're just looking at a small window, whereas the A1C is looking at something that's chronic, okay? And so you're just going to have to filter through all of this and find out what's going on. So again, we can look at diabetic kidney disease, okay? And when you're looking in here, again, people lose their kidneys with diabetes, okay, because the blood flow is so problematic, okay. And so this talks about this is what causes this, okay. High blood glucose, blood sugar, damage to the blood vessels, just like I've been talking about, okay. High blood pressure, the kidneys fail, and then you're on dialysis, okay. And if you don't do dialysis, then you die. Again, the kidneys are your 24/7 garbage disposals that are filtering out all the crap out of the blood. They're kind of like a big colander when you drop the pasta in, and all the big cells stay behind, the red blood cells, the immune system cells, and all the crap filters through, goes into the kidneys, and you pee it out, okay? If it doesn't work right, then the stuff stays in your blood, and it's really toxic, okay? People get dementia from bad kidneys, and then ultimately they die because of changes in the chemistry of the blood. So then you got to have a kidney transplant. So it's not a great thing. Okay, so that's what that's all about. This right here is a great video that explains the second type, the age-related, the type 2 diabetes. Okay, happens 40s, 50s. Okay, it's linked to obesity. It's part of this metabolic syndrome, and so fat cells produce substances that cause a resistance in the insulin receptors to the insulin that's released by the pancreas. Okay, and you just need to watch this video. What happens when high blood glucose happens after a meal? The pancreas responds to that glucose by secreting insulin into the blood vessels. The insulin jumps out to your muscle cells and fat cells and binds to these insulin receptors, and then these little tiny channels get inserted that will suck the glucose out of the blood, and you'll see that happen. However, when you're obese, this process gets disrupted. You'll see a big X right here, and the glucose stays elevated, and then that just fries your blood vessels. Okay. They mention the complications, and then in here we go through a lot of detail about the complications that happen. It's really, really important to watch this. Okay. So you go through all this, okay? And then we're gonna have a really cool discussion about health and aging, okay? So we're gonna go through some calculators here. The concept is the risk is, of course, is obesity. Okay, if we were to ask older adults to do this, you would get probably some different numbers than you guys. You take this with a grain of salt. So you can either click here or here. Okay, I'm going to click there, and we want you to calculate your body mass index. So you click right here on the calculator. Okay, and we go like Dr. Walsh. Dr. Walsh is 6 feet. Okay, and I'm about 170. And I'm going to calculate my body mass index and see how an insurance company would evaluate me in terms of my premiums. Okay, am I at risk for disease? Okay, so I'm in the normal range, which is awesome. All right, so I have a BMI of 23. Okay, all right. This is where you don't want to be. Okay, now you take this with a grain of salt. Okay, if you're an athlete, of course you're going to have a higher BMI. It's all muscle and it's heavy. That being said, it is a first pass to do the BMI, to do your blood pressure. They will do a measurement of your waist, okay, and compare your waist to hip ratio. All right, if you're an athlete, you're gonna have a good waist to hip ratio. If you're obese, you're gonna have a horrible waist to hip ratio. So these are the kind of things that are used to calculate your risk of costing an insurance company a ton of money. Okay. All right, so again, it's just something fun to do, and then we have additional calculators that are over here. Okay, so you can look at your expected longevity. Okay, all righty, so you can go onto here, the Social Security website. Okay, bunch of really neat calculators that we will again use when we start talking about your financial situation towards the end of this semester, and your risk in terms of being financially stable. But right now, we're just going to go down here and do a life expectancy. All right, so you just, you plug in your information here. Okay, so male, date of birth. Okay, so I am June. Okay, and I would say, all right, and come down here. I'm June 30. I was June 30, and I was born a long time ago, guys. So I'm right there. Boom. Okay, I hit submit. All right. Alrighty. So just real quick right here. Okay. So there's a change in life expectancy. You're going to be different than me because you were born much earlier than me. Okay. So that's how many additional years I might expect. All right. Alrighty. So that's it. Okay. So you play with that. Okay. And then we have some other ones down here that calculate other things. Okay. So again, who's putting this is right here is again. Partnered with a investment company. Okay, so we look at all these different variables. Marital status, education. People who are married live longer. Okay, people with higher income live longer. People with education live longer. And you'll come up and see what you do. Okay, do I smoke? Boom, 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 boom. So I want you guys to play with these and see who you are, and then discuss it. All right, here. This is another one that's kind of fun. Okay, all these. Calculator. So we look at exercise, we look at stress, we look, are you a social person? Sociality is the greatest predictor of longevity, by the way. Okay. All right. So you play with that. That is it. And I really look forward to this particular discussion because it's going to be the bomb. Alrighty, guys. So that's it for this lecture. Okay. And then we're going to link this to cardiovascular disease. And then after we get done with that, we move on to the last bit of non-communicable diseases, okay, non-infectious diseases. We're going to look at two problems with the brain, one being Alzheimer's or dementia. There's a spectrum of diseases that cause dementia, and the other is going to be looking at mental health status like clinical depression. Okay, alrighty, we'll see you next time.